Enshrouded's Wake of the Water update was expected to release this October, and unfortunately Keen has released a video announcing a slight delay with it coming out on the 10th of November due to bugs implementing water physics in the game. And though this is slightly disappointing to hear, it's not all bad, because they've also shown off a few sneak peeks as to what's to come. And I'm happy to say we were correct in our initial breakdown where we pointed out that gold could be a new resource that is going to be used in Update 7, which you'll see shortly. But let's just quickly go over the changes and anything else that we can spot. So firstly, it's fantastic to hear that the team are retrospectively going back into the game and reviewing everything that they've done over the past year. Their first point was how some weapons and armors, names and designs convey a different effect than what the weapons and armor stats actually say. As such, we're going to be seeing a lot of items reworked so that their name and design align with their weapon stats, such as the ice daggers, which they point out. And until now, these only did cutting and piercing damage. However, they'll now do piercing and ice damage, which will scale up as the weapon levels up. Now, this actually lays the road for a big change that I've personally wanted to see for a long time, which is to have magic damage abilities such as the ice and fire stats synergizing with melee weapons and also elemental arrows, allowing us to diversify our ability points into magic to increase the potential damage from elemental weapons. So this could potentially open up the game to a lot more subclasses in what we choose to play. So instead of, for example, having a straight up archer, we could have a viable ice archer or a tank that specializes in flame damage, or maybe group healing if you're playing multiplayer. Now, on top of these weapons, armor and equipment and food have also seen changes, so you can bet I'll be going over all the new consumables to work out what's best for our classes come the update. Item durability for weapons have also increased, with item durability scaling with item level, requiring less repairing, and that's the same with its rarity as well. So higher level, higher rarity items are going to be repaired or need to be repaired less. Now, these changes will only apply to weapons found or crafted after the update, so we will have to go out and find new items, and this has been made a little bit more difficult as chests no longer respawn upon logging out of the game. Now, I know this will frustrate some players, especially those who don't have as much time to go out on these loot runs and search for all the weapons. But I feel this is a great thing to implement, as it does actually encourage a lot more exploration and also encourage people to play around with different high-level items that they find that will hopefully get you to play outside of your comfort with different classes. Now, that's not to say that the chests won't respawn over time. They will, it'll just take a certain, and at the moment, undetermined amount of time for those particular chests to respawn. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if from the offset this is going to be about half an hour, because if I remember correctly, that's the amount of time that it takes for the environment to respawn if you've moved away from that section of the map. So if you've been mining out clay or one of the resources and leave for half an hour and then return, that part of the map should have respawned. Now, to make this slightly easier on players though, there are now multiple ways to get better weapons and armor. So once you find these items, even if they're lower levels, you'll unlock them, and then once you get to a specific level, you'll unlock a higher tier version of that weapon. And you'll be able to craft these weapons at any stage of the game. Now, before we move on, I would also like to very quickly point out what we can see on this page, as there are a couple of new equipment pieces and resources. So first and foremost, as I mentioned at the start of the video, we can see the new gold bars as a requirement for these items, though the picture doesn't represent how it will look in Update 7. The other point of interest is that it does look like we're going to have access to a gold level pick and a wood chopping axe as well, which of course will allow us to harvest either higher level materials or lower materials more efficiently. I'm also really curious to know if this is a new golden mace that we see later on, or one that I've just yet to come across in game. All of the items look ever so slightly different, and I believe this is because there's a slight update to the graphics, which we'll talk about shortly, between Update 6 and Update 7. But if you have seen this weapon before, please do let me know in the comments below. Now, enemies will now occasionally drop weapons themselves, which will scale with level and rarity, so you may be able to grind some enemies for certain weapons. Now, I know some weapons were already dropped by various enemies. I don't know if this is going to be a blanket change to all, so that you can find a lot more variety of weapons depending on which enemies you're fighting. Now, mages will have access to Firebolt, which is a new low-level item that requires just bones and resins to produce, which will make it much easier for early game mages to actually play the game and make their way through it. And passive healing has also been given a nerf, which will hopefully, at least they hope, make combat more challenging in the higher tiers of the game. Though I've never had this as a personal issue, because we have plenty of customization options in the game, which will allow us to make the enemies more challenging if we feel it is too easy. Now, at this point, it is also noticeable the difference in graphics between Update 6 and Update 7. The difference in the shadows and contrast make the game pop a lot more, and I feel that they've also improved the textures, allowing for more detail in the game, whereas Update 6 in comparison looks a little washed out. Honestly, the difference here is night and day, and I'm super excited to see the world in-game with these changes. But moving on to the delayed update, given how quiet the devs had been about the update, it was more or less expected that the update was going to be delayed. However, I don't see any major issue in this being the case, because it is quite clear there are some quite big, groundbreaking or game-breaking bugs in the game that they've encountered trying to implement water physics in the game. And it makes sense to delay the update until these issues are ironed out. So it's not like this is a small update to implement, and I'm really interested to see how water will work in game when we get our hands on it. So taking a little bit more time to make it work as intended will pay off dividends with the community. And honestly, November the 10th can't come soon enough, and it's not that far a date it's been pushed back to, so no complaints from my side. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, they will have another teaser this week for us, maybe showing off a few more things that may be coming in the wake of the water update, and you can bet I'll be keeping an eye out for any news in the meantime. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know what you're most excited for in the update, but thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. As always, ciao for now.